Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Hello! Hello!
Yo.
Sorry about that. Random slow moment there for me. It's another week. Another set of amazing things has happened. Carlo, how are you doing?
Pretty good, yeah. I had a little bit of time to try and sort my life out for the first time in months. So yeah, feeling feeling like I actually can think about some interesting things again.
Did you sort your life out?
Just a little bit, just like went to the shops, bought some clothes for the first time in 6
What?
months. I know,
What?
crazy life I lead.
Who are
Yeah.
you, and what have you done with Carlo? Yeah.
No, I'm an imposter with a with with a Movember tash
Oh
instead.
my god, you actually are having the
Yeah,
Movember tash. Jesus, not like us normal people who have tashes all year round.
it's
Because
horrible.
we're real men.
It's horrible. I hope everybody loves it.
Fab. Cool, brilliant. So I mean, it's been a week, and it's been 7 days, which is kind of like a week. Yeah, it's been
That's
quiet,
true.
hasn't it? It has been
Yep.
quiet.
It has been
Should
quiet.
we?
Of course, it's been quiet. I mean,
Why? Why'd you say that?
like we'll not like talk about it loads, but like, Simon are announcing the next Kickstarter again, right? Like, of course, it's quiet. There is no
Well,
news because Simon are concentrating on Kickstarters again.
I wasn't gonna say it, and I wasn't gonna bring it up. And when I say I wasn't gonna bring it
Yeah,
up,
I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up either, but like
I wasn't gonna bring it up as in like I nearly thought about making this the frontline title, and ultimately the entire point of today's show is that Marvel Zombicide is a thing. Marvel Zombicide. Let's talk about Marvel Zombicide for several hours. How does that sound, Carlo?
no thanks.
Are you
No, I'm
100%
not.
sure?
I'm not interested.
Are you
I'm not interested
1,000,000% sure that that's your answer? Because Carlo,
Yeah,
I'm not accepting it. Look at him. He's massive. And I
he
don't
is.
mean in anything relation to number 69, which of today's episode. That has nothing to do with the size of whatever this is on the screen.
Didn't even realize.
There we go. You
Awesome.
see, UI
Yeah.
Street.
50th
Squeeze it in.
Kickstarter, our 69th episode. They're all important numbers, big numbers. Things are happening. Like
2 foot. Very big number.
Yeah, not interested. Like, which is odd because like I'm super into Marvel, but I'm so not into Kickstarter. Like, not for years now. Not like there was a peak in my interest, and then I'm just particular. Who the fuck? Who would ever back a Kickstarter, considering the recent shipping crisis? Like,
Yeah,
how? Who thinks that their Kickstarter is going to arrive in the next 10 years?
it's
Like,
true. It is mad truth. One does kind of question that a little bit. But I mean, look at it. Doesn't the model look so cool? And it's for Zombicide, Carlo. Everyone loves Zombicide. Everyone plays Zombicide. Everyone buys Zombicide stuff at every given opportunity, right?
How many of the 50 are the 50 Kickstarters are Zombicide?
I
Is it
actually
5 of them?
don't
More?
know. I think it might even be more than that. You got the one before Marvel United was Zombicide Dead or Alive, right?
Yeah,
Black Plague
maybe.
was one.
Yeah, and then I think at least three being the base set, and then like 2 expansions within the same kind of universe. Whatever. Mickey,
you've got
I
season
don't
2
want to
and
talk
season
about zombie
3.
for them.
Season 2 and
Yeah,
season 3, which I'm guessing were kickstarted. I mean, yeah.
yeah. Plus Black Tide, plus
Yeah.
Dead or Alive, being a fantasy themed one and a Cowboys themed
Cowboy.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Now a Marvel one.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I mean, I will say I will say, me and you, Carlo, were talking about this the other week, weren't we? With was it John? Marvel Zombies is actually like one of the coolest things. Nothing to do with like Zombicide and what Seaman are doing, but Marvel Zombies is actually a really cool comic book series. If you've never read it, and there was a what's the short? Is it Marvel Visions? There's one on zombies, and Marvel Zombies is
No,
really is it
no.
Visions? Which one is the man I mean?
It's not Visions. It's Star Wars Visions, isn't
Star
it?
Wars Visions,
And
and it's
it's
Marvel whatever. It's
Marvel
the
Ultimate
animated.
Stories, whatever, like alternate
Yeah.
universes, or yeah.
Um.
What if? What if?
What ifs? That's it. Yeah. And Marvel Zombies is really actually kind of interesting and fun. I don't give a shit about Marvel Zombicide. I couldn't give a shit.
No.
So we'll leave that there and move on to the much, much, much brighter things of A Song of Ice and Fire.
I wonder, Mickey, why does Simon never hit us up for like, you know what I mean, to promote their products or anything like that? I couldn't possibly think why. When all we ever do is say Kickstarter shit, and that's 99% of their business product.
It's also 99% of our business product. Yeah, no, it is questionable, isn't it? Right, we'll move on to today's meat and two eggs then, which I've got some stuff. Another 69 reference, by the way. Anyone? We've got a couple of questions here that have come up through various different people from various different areas, and then we'll go through today's news segment, which you're all going to absolutely love, and Carlo's going to hate, hence the reason we all like it more. And then we'll go on to the usual event stuff and all of that rubbish. The bit we talk about numbers apparently, which really is just not important anymore, is it?
I did actually put together those numbers that I threatened to do last week around how successful Othel actually is. Yeah. I think they're interesting. We'll get to them for Marwin's benefit. Find out in hour 3 of Tourney Ground.
Episode 82, when we finally get around to it. Sunday says, a 2-foot Galactus, wowie, I've got enough junk as it is, like 3 Zorses. You get 4 in a box, Chris. So you bought 3 boxes.
Yeah, the fat guy's not junk. He's just awesome.
Yeah. I mean, what he doesn't understand is that Zorses are actually one of the best units in the game. Because it's very fitting for what we're going to come up against later on. Right then. So, we had a question that was asked by a guy on the Discords known as Runic Elk. I've no idea who he is in relation to anything else. Probably do, but it was a really interesting question. He said that you've got loads of different things. It kind of relates to what we talked about last week. Loads of things on a stat card. You've got points cost, you've got attack profiles, you've got movement, and all the various different stats. And of all of these places, which do you think can impact something the most in relation to its power? Do you think which one impacts the power the most to change? And secondly, which is the easiest to change? Which is interesting. There's a starting point off there. So, I mean, Carlo, I'll let you start. The most impactful stat on a card that you think is worth changing. That could be anything from points cost through to, the attack rank on 3rd rank.
What if I disagree with the premise of the question?
Well, that is an interesting question. That's an interesting rabbit hole itself. Like, go on.
Yeah. So the thing is, so some of the stats are interrelated.
Yep.
That's for a start, right? So your attack profile and your to hit profile are interrated, intermingled, and whether or not you have any keywords attached to that. Your armor save and your morale save are intermingled.
Yep.
Like they together generate your defense, right? Like there is no point in having a 2-up save and an 8-up morale does not make you defensive, because there are still many units around and many ways to make you take wounds. So you're not that tanky.
Yep.
Movement's unique important. And so I guess if we're talking in those terms, one stat which can have more impact on anything else would be movement. Movement has such granularity and is such a large step between being movement 4, movement 5, and movement 6. I think that movement is such a big stepping point. Whereas there's 2+ saves, 3+ saves, 4, 5 through to 6+ saves, right? There's morale, everything from 2 through to 8. There's attack profiles. Actually, we talked about this the other week. The attack profiles are much more narrowly defined than they used to be. You only, on your first rank, you only swing from 5 attacks through to 7 attacks because they got rid of everything with more than 7 attacks.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
But obviously, that is all in with points cost. Like, points cost is what matters. Like, there is nothing in the game. There is not a single thing in the game that wouldn't be worth 1 point, and there is nothing in the game right now that could possibly be worth 12 points.
I can see that. I can see. I mean, there probably is stuff that's worth 12 points, but we're talking about, you know, stuff with relentless, like two activation units kind of thing. Which would you still take crossbowmen captains if they were 12 points? You probably wouldn't, but actually I still think it would be a consideration. You know, I don't think anyone would not take them for 11. So yeah, I would definitely. I think Hobbit's right in chat. In that I would 100% say movement. I think is the biggest impactor. I talked about it last week with defensive units, and I have been saying a lot this week to people that you can't make defensive units too strong because of you run the risk of this non-engaging gameplay, which is what we all kind of thought when we saw Lannister Guardsmen start off and the change of objectives moving further back. And to some extent, it is true. You do it a lot, Carlo, right, with your Lannisters. The premise of the Lannister build is to put some terrain where there's no rerolls in the center, bog down the flank objectives so that they're never really engaged, and then just sit on the 3 objectives and go, well, I eventually win, you have to do something. And as a defensive faction, that allows you to win the game because you can leverage your defensive abilities, which you otherwise can't if you have to go on the aggressive side. The problem with that is that that's set around a premise of I'm going to beat you to objectives, certainly the center. And once the game plan or once the strategy has been realized by your opponent, it can be shut down. There is counterplay. The same can't be true if you just get there kind of all the time as it is, or if you just went first on round 1. That's problematic, obviously.
So what I would do is I would rephrase the question, which isn't which is the best of these stats or which is the most important or anything like that. I would rephrase it to say, which of these stats does CMON routinely undervalue and which ones does it routinely overvalue? And I would say that CMON routinely undervalues high mobility. Cavalry maneuver, they do not cost it generically. They do not cost it well enough. And high movement, they don't cost that well enough, including in people's tactics decks. That was very, very, very apparent in 1.6 in the fact that they just didn't see how incredibly valuable and powerful the Stark deck was and the Free Folk deck having tons of movement mechanics versus other people's decks that didn't. And also just generically undervaluing units that had movement 6 at the time. They're a bit better in 2021.
Yeah, they are toned down.
I would say that they definitely toned it down. I would say that they overvalue armor saves and they undervalue morale.
Yes, they definitely undervalue morale. And we've seen that with obviously the rise of Poor Fellows and the Faith style lists, but not just Faith, Mance, Asher Attachment, not Asher Commander. All of the various things that, Tormund, Stalwart, the likes of even Stannis, and emboldened style mechanics from Baratheons coming through. All of those things which are nearly always treasured, wanted, and pushed for. And used quite a lot within the meta that we see. And I'm not even saying people saying, oh, but they're not good. Yeah, they're not good, but they're used within the meta to effect because they're the best of what people have. Yeah, all of those things undervalued, definitely. I also think they undervalue certain defensive abilities. And I know we talk about defensive abilities being a negative play experience, but or we might do anyway. Things like Hardened. Hardened is obviously something they undervalue because the only things that have Hardened are 1-point attachments or 3 commanders. That's fucking stupid. The only person who gets close to having a Hardened on them as natural is Warrior Sons, and it's not quite Hardened because of the faith mechanic. Like Hardened is as good, if not like on a par with something like Resilience, really. So yeah, I think it's...
but Resilience at least is an order.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like the real issue with Hardened is that it's a continuous effect. No matter how much pressure you put on a unit, it will always be hardened. That will always be an ever increasing barrier that you have to get through. It's worse than Shield Wall. Like Shield Wall as a non-order would be a bit of an issue. It'd be very, very hard to break through a full health unit. But at least once you started to do it, the ability would weaken. Hardened gets stronger as the unit gets closer to death, and that's a big issue.
I don't really understand why it's 1+.
Yeah,
but we'll go into all that later on. Cool. The second thing that he asked was which of them is the easiest to change, and the obvious answer here is points value, because it doesn't devalue the vast majority of the card, right?
Is it though?
I think it is. I think it's easy to change a 5-point unit to a 6-point unit with the change of that one number. Do I think that that's the best thing to change, or
easy for who? Easy for who?
Simon. It's way easy, right?
Because they don't have to produce easy anything. For the players. I agree that it's easy for the players because the players don't have to learn any new abilities. They don't have all they have to know is that the unit doesn't cost as much as it used to cost, right?
Or more.
Yeah. Like that's when you put your army list together, that's the only time that you have to remember it has a different cost. Whereas when you play the game is when you need to remember what its abilities are. So if its abilities are continuously changing, you need to remember their continuously changing abilities a lot of the time that you play, whereas you only need to know that its rules have changed during list building process if you're only changing points costs.
Yes.
But for Simon's perspective, points is the hardest thing to change because your granularity is huge.
Oh god,
right?
Yeah.
Like
if you're looking for balance, I don't believe that changing points is easy at all. But if it's the easiest thing to change, if we assume that they're saying it's too good at 5, so we'll drop it to, or we'll up it to 6, or it's too good at 5, or it's too crap at 5, we'll drop it to 4. That's the easiest thing they can do. I don't think that's a good solution ever, because I think that a lot of these things, like we've talked about a lot, fall into these kind of it's a 4.6 unit that costs 5, so it's just worse than a 5-point unit that's 5, unfortunately. And a lot of things, and this is the bit that's annoying me, and it come on to this again later on, links to what we talked about last week. It's the ecosystem, right? The change in one little thing can create an ecosystem that has an impact elsewhere. And it's what we saw. It's what we see in the change in defensive mechanics. Defensive mechanics have become more powerful, which is cool. Defensive units worth taking. Lannister Guardsmen, take them. Wardens, take them. Even R'hllor Faithful have got this cool defensive mechanic, take them. And then I go, yeah, but half the mechanics in the game that are defensive are not impacted by archers or ranged units. Yeah. So ranged units then become more effective, and you go, damn, not only are my defensive units not affecting archers, but they're also slow, so they get shot at by archers more and can't move around as easily. So I can't take my defensive units. So I'll take these other units instead that are cheap and can do these things, and the answer to those cheap units or to those less defensive units becomes cavalry. So you end up with, and I am starting to believe that something like a 2 cavalry, 2 archer list for the factions that struggle to run 8 activations. If you can run a 7 activation list with 2 archers, 2 cavalry, that's probably one of the best field lists you can fucking field. Because you just ignore most of the opponent's mechanics.
I think that interestingly, like the easiest, and this is really weird, but the easiest mechanic that they can change, the easiest stat that they can change is morale.
Yes, I agree.
And I say that because, like, in a way, I just think that it's the stat that people are most accepting of just changing. Right? Like, it's weird because morale is such a like made up stat. Like it's a non-existent stat. Okay, whereas people believe that armor is a stat and that movement is a stat. So what I mean by that is, if you about something like wardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you told me that they were going to have a 2-up armor save or a 4-up armor save, I feel like tons of people would be like, no, they obviously have a 3-up armor save. But when you're morale 6, if somebody said you're going to be morale 5 or you're going to be morale 7, like they're just intangible things. Like they don't have anything attached to them. They're just what we believe is an acceptable morale. And I think that one of the easiest wins that they ever did was they changed halberdiers in 1.4, whenever.
Yes, I think it was, yeah.
1.4, basically the only change that they made to them was they took them from morale 7 to morale 6.
Yeah.
And everybody was just like, yeah, not overpowered, but yeah, they're better. Like, they were just like, yeah, they're better.
Yeah.
And suddenly they were just like more viable. And I think that if you just took, so like such an easy win, right? Like everybody's like, Night's Watch, they're fucking amazing, right? Just go, all right, they're all morale 6. Yeah. You know, like fuck this morale 5 off, they're all morale 6. And everybody would be like, yeah, okay, I understand. Like that's cool. It's such an intangible stat. And it would have a big impact on the game. It would have a big impact on their defense in general. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody would like come up with any law reasons why it is or isn't right or blah, 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 blah. I mean, people already have these law issues with the fact that the Night's Watch are considered a good morale army when, you know, people have many law reasons to believe that, you know what I mean, they're cowards and runaways, and do you know what I mean, like why are they good morale? Like there's some powerful characters, but generically speaking, they're not.
Am I making this up? This is obviously the TV show. Isn't the first episode when Eddard has a guy from the Night's Watch, like from who's deserted the wall, and he executes him because he's deserted the wall, right? Like the first time you get introduced to it.
I mean, he has met an actual White Walker, but yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, but like my point is the first time you meet him is you've got Benjen, who's like, he's cool, and he's like a proper like hardened bloke who decided to go there, not of his own free will, kind of he made that decision. And then you've got this generic bloke A who was a conscript, who then became a brother in the Night's Watch and is now scared shitless. Those are the two guys you meet straight away. So yeah.
But the same can be said of Targaryens. Like why are they, you know, easy fix? Just push them all to morale 6. You look at like the underperforming R'hllor units in Baratheons, like Queen's Men or King's Men or something like that. All you got to do is push them 1 morale in the opposite direction, and I think that people don't have an issue with it, and yet you massively improve or change the power level of the unit. But the real point here is I say massively. I actually mean you incrementally, in probably the right amount, change its impact on the game.
Yeah.
Right. You do have to be careful because you can't just like massively. I think that they've had a huge problem in that they've massively changed the center point around which everybody's morale is. It's massively lower than it used to be. And that in itself has a big impact on the game.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a positive one. But you know, that's the Lannister in me talking, obviously. But I generically don't think I think we'll probably come on to it in NPE or not. But I don't think that the game is in a better place for having much better morale with huge negative modifiers.
Yeah.
I think it was better off when everybody had worse morale and there was less ways to stack a huge test. Like, I think that morale damage was just better as a generic thing that was constantly happening rather than this massive boom or bust that we have right now. But that's like a different subject. I think that people are very set in what armor things have. And whenever something isn't armored but has a good save, even though Simon say defense isn't just your armor, it's your skill and stuff like that, right? But like, I don't see what skill people have in not getting shot.
Yeah.
But you know, like there are like we're not talking about superhumans here. We're talking about like scary combat fighters.
Yeah.
People have an opinion on what armor should be. That's linked to movement. Movement is also an incredibly impactful stat and is very hard to change.
Yep.
I think that morale is the thing that has an impact and people are okay with it changing. And attack profiles, I believe that they should go back up to 8. Like I don't know why we're so limited in this 5, 6, 7 range.
The thing is with morale, especially, is morale's more of a linear change. And I know it's not really linear, whatever, but like it is a more tangible change as well in terms of direct impact that it has. Armor isn't actually. It doesn't directly, like, you can't just say you make your armor 1 better, it makes you save more saves or fail more saves. Like, that's not actually how those statistics work most of the time. In the same way that a hit modifier or the number of dice you roll, it changes your averages, and if you assume averages all the time, that's fine. But it also changes in the way that you think about it. And as Carlo says, the moment you limit to something like 7 dice, you know that the maximum damage that can cause, if it doesn't have crit blow, is 7 wounds. And that's a very different way of thinking about the impact of an attack, right? So it doesn't change. Yes, it changes the averages to something maybe more smooth, whatever, lower. I don't care. It changes the way that is thought about within the game. And there's ways that good players manipulate that. Good players know my unit's got 11 wounds. Like, you don't have any way of doubling down on damage, or maybe you have 1 card in your deck that gives you like a +1 damage on your attack. So I know that if I'm on 11 wounds and your 7 attack unit runs into me, you can't kill me unless I crit fail everything and I crit fail the panic. And the odds of that might happen, but like, it's unlikely. I'll take that risk. And when it comes out and you go, oh damn, you one-shot me, it's not like, oh damn, you one-shot me, oh that's really bad, I'm awful. It's like, oh well, I got unlucky. Move on. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Certainly something to think about anyway. Yes. The other question that came out. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
No, I can't see the chat. My internet's terrible today for some reason, guys. Sorry. So I've had to disable the chat and everything. I can't. So you'll have to tell me if anything interesting is again.
That's absolutely fine. Daniel Logan says Queensmen and Kingsmen could really do with their morale improving, because obviously their entire ability bases around them passing it. So that makes sense for him. I do agree. People in general agreement that like Night's Watch morale should maybe be changed. Enline thinks that Lanny need a buff because they've got the shittest morale ever. Of course. Yeah, generally people in agreement, and then Lockerbie's chatting a load of shit about having a fast and sturdy unit, cheap activations, and everything like that. Lockerbie just came in and like just dumped a load of comments like immediately.
Yeah, I mean, on the theme of things that Simon undervalue, like they just undervalue the value of any activation in the game.
Oh,
like, but that's so hard and so intangible. It's not a stat. They are trying to learn. Like they were like, so I think they're Simon are just like they're a year and a half behind the competitive community, right? Like a year and a half ago, the competitive community were like, oh, 3 NCUs is really powerful, right? And then a year and a half or like a year later, Simon are like, oh, NCUs are really powerful. Let's make the NCUs more powerful. But over a year ago, the competitive community already realized it's not the NCUs that's powerful. It's just how many activations you have.
Yeah.
Right? So, but Simon obviously didn't realize this and obviously don't fucking understand, because at the same time that they make NCUs more expensive, they introduce a ton of 3-point attachments that give activations. And they also lower the cost of a load of units and create a load of 4-point units that have incredible support roles.
Which is
and
fine.
So they clearly don't understand how to value that thing, which is an activation. Like they don't realize that the reason a 3-point NCU was always taken is because 3 points for any activation is too cheap.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's not universal. Like we've discussed before, you make everything universal, and I'm not saying balanced. This is obviously if they make it balanced, we wouldn't have this discussion. We've already established that it's impossible to really find balance. But if they make everything at least equal in that, like everyone has access to a 4-point combat unit that's useful that they can spam if they want to, it then becomes, well, at least everyone can create these builds. And then it becomes, okay, which 4-point unit's the best? But then it's like, hang on, maybe I can run one activation less than this other guy, but my 6-point unit or 7-point unit that I have in place with this certain attachment create a combo that will allow me to beat my opponent's extra activation. And that's where you start playing one down, but with the benefits of those, like one less in the way that you can kind of like play it. But I mean, that just doesn't happen. People can't do that. You just end up in like a never-ending cycle. And that still is on the premise that one less activation, assuming you spend the points, is going to be good somewhere. But I mean, that's not necessarily always the case. So yeah, the other thing, the last thing that Runic, it was a kind of big question. He actually talked about game upkeep. Now, this is not something that myself or Carlo struggle with really ourselves that much. But basically faction bloat. The problem where a certain faction or factions have too much release product. And we see it actually already. Less so with Lannisters. Starks. Me and Dan down the club, and yourself, Carlo, we've had this conversation before. Starks have 2 5-point units. They have the Wolves. And then they've got Tully Sworn Shields, Stark Bowmen, Karstark Spearmen, She-Bears, and now Berserkers that all fill 6 points. That's 5 units before we even begin to go down the neutral avenue of 6-point units. And it's like, how... It's cool, but how can you possibly ever manage when you've just got this much faction bloat and so many things in one point slot? I get that Simon cannot make everything competitively viable, right? We all know that. We can never make everything competitively viable. That's just an acceptance we have to get on with. But how can you make 5 units in one particular army, and West Coast Bannerman turning up just in time for his Stark chat? How can he possibly ever make that many units in one point category viable for a faction? Like that's hard when most of your points or most of your choices are in one narrow alleyway. It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. Give him a second to respond.
No, I agree. Yeah, but am I here?
Yes, you are. You are. Keep going.
So I think that it's very true. And interesting because those are the magical releases that have come up for what quarter one 2022 maybe.
Yep.
I think you might have lost me again. Maybe I'm with you.
Just keep going.
And included in that are the Lannister Watch, right? And for once, literally for the first time ever, I went to the store, I put them in my basket, I got through to checkout, and literally, first time that it has ever happened, guys, I just thought, nah, fuck it, and didn't buy them. That's the first time literally the first time I've ever done that for Song. Like, I didn't buy the models after, like, thinking, you know what, I'm going to go and buy these models.
Yeah. Why is that?
And I think, and at the time, actually, I was honestly like, oh shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, do I not like this game anymore? You know, I was honestly like, okay, is this
The end for Carlo. Yeah. We'll just let him catch up. His internet's particularly bad tonight, isn't it? We've done well here. Done very well. It's a bad day. There we go. He's finally dropped. Carlo has dropped from the stream. I am going to go solo just for the moment, but I'm going to guess I knew what he says. It's the first time he's never, ever bought product. Which is true, right? The first moment that someone doesn't buy product is a pretty sad time. And especially bad if you really like the product, what we're buying. You know, I haven't got Chariot, so I still haven't got Frozen Shore Bear Riders either. And, you know, I'm in no rush to go and get that kind of stock. I do want it, but I don't feel the necessary rush to go get it, and that's through various reasons, for various reasons. So I kind of get where Carlo's coming from, and this is the man who has, you know, literally boxes and boxes and boxes of spare content lying around in his cupboard. He has got literally, you know, beam-worthy levels of boxes just sat there that are unopened. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, yeah, that's where I think he was going with that. I can't speak for him on that front. I do think faction bloat is a problem, though. In response to Runic Elk's question, if they're going to create this kind of faction bloat that we talk about, I think they have to offer it to factions in different point categories. You know, to put it bluntly, CMON need to be looking at the game now and going, Stark don't have a 4-point unit. What can we give them that's 4 points? And I know Wolves, yeah, they're kind of like 4-point activations, whatever, sod that shit. They're not a 4-point unit. They need to come around and say, this is something we can give you that is interesting, that's a bit different, that's fun. I think that the same could be true of Lannisters. Obviously, him saying there about Lannister Port guys there. It's kind of the opposite for Baratheon, right? Baratheon, who have, in theory, double content worth of stuff with Renly and Stannis side, and yet it feels the opposite. It feels like they have got not enough content from either or of the faction loyalty sides, that you end up kind of like always running the non-loyalty stuff, which is fine, but you want to run loyalty stuff. And I know we've got the pikemen and the Tyrell Lancers coming out, but like, they're not out, and it's just, yeah. Isn't the problem that they're not competitive? That they're not competitive units, rather than just the toys being great and should be worth buying. Oh wow. I'm gonna briefly mute Carlo while that shit sorts itself out. Jesus. I will let him sort his life out before he comes back online. Are we good, Carlo? I'll take that as a no, because he's immediately not responded. Great work. We really do run a very professional outfit here at Song
That
of Ice and Fire Stats. Um, Nothing that we possibly do could ever go wrong, and
maybe.
nothing we ever do is bad quality or not thought about prior. We do rigorous testing on all of our products, including the technical issues, before Tourney Ground on a Monday. Honest.
Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
Not good. Not good. Clearly.
Anyway, Dave, the indomitable Dave Toon, says, isn't the problem that they're not competitive units, rather than the toys just being great and should be worth buying? To some extent, yes. I mean, we can't expect every single unit to be competitive, Dave. That's 100% correct. And I'm willing to accept, and I 100% agree that not every unit should be competitive. Some units are just in the game because they're cool. And you know what? That's completely fine. I've no problem with that. What's frustrating is knowing that there's lots of units that are in the game that are cool, that all exist in the same, like, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't you prefer it, Dave, if, like, Karstark Spearmen were, like, a little bit worse but 5 points? Wouldn't you just enjoy that more? Because it would go, cool, I could mix these things together. That's the problem. That's the real problem. What's your take there?
I don't know if how far I got through the topic and conversation before.
I think I finished it for you, but go on.
Yeah, well, it's roughly speaking just that, like, I felt on the purchasing end for the first time ever that Lannisters had bloat. I didn't want to buy these new units just because I was like, I have so many. And it's not like, oh, I have unpainted units. That's never stopped me in the past. And it's never that, like, I didn't think I would field them. I mean, I have 2 units of Thornwatch. I knew what their stats were before I bought them. It's not to do with their power level. It's not even to do with whether or not I think that the unit are cool. I just thought, like,
yeah,
I have, and I'm just a bit disinterested in them.
Yeah. It is true sad times. It is true sad times when faction bloat is starting to become real. And as I think we're all in agreement here, we just want units to be fun to play, and competitive viability is something that we as the competitive community will eventually decide and come to an agreement on. But, like, units that are fun to play and interesting to play, and something like Thornwatch are a classic example, unfortunately, where even in a non-competitive environment, I don't find them fun. I just think they're bad. Like, I just don't enjoy playing them because I think, oh god, these are just not good.
So the issue is, and the thing that it comes down to, right, is that CMON need to sell units.
Yes.
Right? Like, you can't get away from that fact. Whereas what I want, and what I think the majority of the competitive community want, is they want the units that they already have to have better balanced rules. But it's not in CMON's interest to balance the rules for you. It's in CMON's interest to make a new unit and sell it to you.
Yep.
And particularly, it's if you have an issue with balance, and if you think about this carefully, right, it's been very, very apparent, and this has been the messaging that you will have heard either overtly or very, very subtly underneath. This is the messaging you will have been hearing for the past 2 years, which are, oh, you think the game's not balanced? Just wait until this thing you haven't seen comes out. Everything's gonna get fixed. Which, when you actually translate it, says, don't like the game right now, buy more stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
it's
really, like, how does that not translate into that exact thing?
Yeah, I mean,
and it's never like, hey, just wait a second, all the stuff that you currently own is going to get fixed. It's no. You just need to buy more things, and the game will be better.
It is
and it's
certainly...
like, yeah, of course they're a company. They
Yeah.
have to do that, right? They have to do that. But at a point, it becomes tiresome, and you just want the stuff that you own to be good.
Yes, I mean, I would never begrudge them wanting to generate sales, because ultimately they don't exist as a company if they don't sell stuff. Like, we do have to be honest there. And I get the sales side of it, but I do agree. you know, we do want. I mean, you create good balance, and sales will generate from that because people will be drawn to the game. People are being drawn to this game because actually, at a kitchen table casual level, the game is balanced. And I know people say it's not, and we would argue that yes, the game isn't balanced throughout the entire system, certainly not competitive level. But actually, if you look at the lower level gameplay that we see from average players across the world, the data that we collect, generally speaking, it's not the same stuff that we complain about at competitive level that's strong. That means that people are leveraging the strengths differently because the game is played differently. The game has balance at a kitchen table level because it ultimately comes down to skill of the people playing it. That's all you want, and that's what I kind of say to new players a lot more now, is that yeah, the game, like the competitive game, the game you'll see me play against this guy, that won't look fun. The game you play with this guy will be fun because it's a different game. In the same way that if you go to top table 40k, it is the most like, and I'm not going to say 40k is a good game at this point, but like people enjoy playing 40k. They do. Like I can't take that away from them. They absolutely love it, and they'll go and they'll play a game and they're like, oh, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Whereas they might not like the top table competitive play where it's like I didn't get to play my turn. Well, yeah, but that's not your experience of the game, so like, don't worry about it. It's there, sure, but like a lot of us here, you know, we don't have to put up with that. But admitting it's there, admitting that the meta and the strong things are there is important, and I can't stress this enough. We've talked about it a lot before. You've got to admit when there's imbalance as a competitive player, and as a community, we've got to say this isn't balanced. And yes, Dave, the average players do make up the vast majority. So, very true. You can't shy away from the fact that balance doesn't exist, or balance does exist, or whatever. And pretending that balance doesn't exist, or balance is a problem, or not a problem, I should say, is kind of like certainly the theme of our next segment today. And we've got a new segment, which if anyone you read the Tourney Ground description rather than just clicking on the link as per you loyal customers do, whenever I post anything, you just immediately click on it because you're all amazing people and it has nothing to do with the actual content that we actually provide you. Today we have a new segment. Carlo, are you ready?
Maybe. We'll see if it's Carlo or Carlo Bot.
We'll see if it's Carlo or Carlo Bot. I really hope it's Carlo Bot because he has much better insights than normal Carlo does. So, today, for the first time ever, our inaugural... I forgot what we call it. Inaugural thing that we do on a Monday? Segment? That one. There we go. What could it possibly be? Well, it is NPE or Get Good. So, Carlo, we have a selection of things picked out by our viewing audience before the show, our insider audience. If anyone wants to be part of the insider program, what you have to do is run your own version of Tourney Ground. That's how I did it. We have got a selection of stuff that I have picked out, handpicked, that you have to decide if it is NPE or Get Good.
I feel like this whole segment needs to come with like an absolute trigger warning. I think that Mickey is intending to trigger people.
No. Of course not. Of course not. I wouldn't dare do that. When have I ever done anything that pisses anyone off or triggers anybody? Never done it in my entire life.
Whereas I just trigger people without intention. You know, like I'm just ignorant to the fact that I'm about to trigger everybody.
It's true. It's true. So, in the hopes that this works first time, our first item, and of course it doesn't work first time, where would we be if it wasn't for working first time? Let's add that back in. There we go. Done. Oh god, that was way bigger than I thought it was going to be. It is Cersei. Cersei, NPE or not?
Isn't it all Get Good?
Or Get Good, yeah. Specifically, all
this
Get Good.
This segment isn't what I thought it was going to be.
No. Let's get her appropriately sized on the screen rather than absolutely huge.
Who the fuck thinks that Cersei is NPE? Like Lannister players?
So no,
Because she's shit. She's the worst Lannister NCU.
I will actually say that this is the images that we see on the screen are placeholders for what they represent. In this case,
Cool. Okay.
Carlo, subjugation of power. NPE
Yeah.
don't get good.
Yeah, that's a Lannister NPE right there.
Yes, it is indeed a Lannister NPE. I agree. A big old one for NPE first, but specifically, what we see here is NCUs that we feel don't really stack up to an ability. Like what they are used for is not their intended goal. So you end up putting something like Cersei in your deck. It's like, oh, so you can draw Hear Me Roar and Subjugation. It's like, no, so I can draw through my deck faster. Like, it's NPE from a list building perspective of using something for really not what its purpose is for, because what its purpose is pretty shit. What do you think?
That's interesting. I personally, I don't see any NPE in it at all. Like at all. Like if I want to use something bad to have like a weird secondary niche purpose,
Yeah, I think I heard all of that in about half a millisecond condensed bit where all the audio came through in one go. But yeah, so if you believe it's taken for a niche purpose, it's less NPE and more like GIT GUD. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, do people actually say what other cases exist outside of Cersei, and do people actually not like them? Like, I literally can't believe that anybody thinks that her under that use is an NPE. So absolutely 100% categorically in the GIT GUD category. If like you don't like Cersei, then yeah,
just a strong GIT GUD. And
yeah. I mean, honestly, anybody in the chat, does anybody can like has anybody ever complained that like their opponent used Cersei in a way that they didn't like because they weren't using her ability to use it the way it was supposed to be used? Or
I don't think anyone has. No one in chat is saying. No one in chat is saying that ironically, and they're all saying GIT GUD as well. And yeah, NPE is negative play experience for Dan there as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence with stuff like this because I think it's a negative play experience to have NCUs that don't have impact. You know, positive impact. You don't look at Cersei and go, "Oh yeah, she's really good." Isn't she amazing? And she's not the only one, right? Especially dominant characters. So we think Sansa. Sansa is another classic who is up there as like a dominant character from the series, very important character. We saw Sansa's prominence in 1.6, and now someone looks at Sansa and goes, "Well, that's a piece of shit." And that's sad, right? It's sad to have dominant characters.
Yeah, but I mean, like NPEs can't be stuff. Like NPEs aren't bad things. Like if you've chosen to take it, then you can't complain about it. Now you can I actually really hate it myself. People claim that their opponent's choices are NPEs, right?
Yes.
Because you've inflicted a thing on me which I don't like. Okay, but if you've inflicted Cersei or Sansa on yourself, that's not a negative play experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
that's just.
I agree.
Like you knew what you were picking, right? Balance. Like we could go through and list every shit unit in the game.
Yes. No. Yeah.
They're not negative play experiences. They're just shit.
Yeah.
Like.
No, I agree. But it certainly brings up the credence of negative play experience in list building, which is, if you're not enjoying list building, which some people seem to suggest, that's not good. Maybe this isn't the game for you, if you're not enjoying it at all. Should we move on to the second one?
Go on, let's try. It's not quite likely to be this segment.
No, this segment is random. There we go, perfect sized and everything. Khal Drogo, of course, I'm not referencing Khal Drogo
Assassinate.
here. I am, yes, expert duelist.
Expert duelist.
NPE or Get Good?
I understand people's argument, but Get Good. So, Khal Drogo is the perfect storm because he's cavalry, so he's immune to it himself. He's a commander, so he brings it for free.
Yep.
He's in a highly mobile army, so he can pick where he goes. And so it all comes together to feel like you don't get to be involved in the decision or whatever. But like, who fucking cares? Like, do you know what I mean? Like units die, things die. Why is it so negative when a character attachment from a unit dies? But like, it's not a negative play experience when units die.
Yeah.
Like, next thing you're going to tell me that like Gregor's +2 wounds is a negative play experience because it allows you to kill units. Like, things die. It's the way the game plays. I don't know why people believe that their attachments should be sacred and safe, whereas units shouldn't be. I think it's a really odd concept. I really do think that you just need to get good because honestly, he doesn't even win that much. He's not that high rated. He's not dominating tournaments.
You are extremely popular in today's chat. I have seen a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 people saying NPE. So the vast majority of chat, active chat, are saying that you are a terrible human being and you should be abandoned as a source of information.
I understand the metrics on which they believe it's NPE. Also, that it's a single dice roll. People hate single dice rolls.
Yes.
That like a big effect swings from single dice rolls, obviously. 3, 4, 5, 6. This big thing happens. 1 and 2, nothing happens. There's no middle ground. There's no like take some wounds but not all the wounds or whatever. I honestly don't understand that people are like, oh, there should be some kind of duel and the person dies back and like, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, or like, we should take our weapon skills and add them to a 10d6 and like, do you know what I mean? It's like,
I see you played Hero Hammer too.
Yeah, exactly. Like this isn't a Warhammer challenge, right? This is a mechanic by which certain characters can kill other characters. It also exists that like, I would say maybe the whole concept is slightly heightened by like, who the fuck is Carl and why the fuck is he going around besting every major character from A Song of Ice and Fire? Like, why is he just rocking around killing Barristan Selmy, killing, you know what I mean? Like,
well, he's a maid. Don't you know this? That's who he is. He's the maid.
Yeah.
We don't mean Carl from West Coast Bannerman, by the way. Carlo's not just saying like, who the fuck is Carl? Who's that guy? No. Yeah. You're right.
So like when it's Jaime Lannister, Lannister, when it's Khal Drogo, Vargo's interesting, whatever. Loras, although Loras is actually like a great jousting knight, not a great hand-to-hand combat. Mm-hmm. So it's also a bit weird.
Seems to have gone again. Random break in. There we go. Is he back? Very fun, isn't it?
I don't know. Like I don't have any issue with the ability. It's not. Yes, the whole game can swing on it, but like wins deployment.
Yes. It is indeed who wins deployment. Major part there is going to be the most important thing. And I would say one of the big things that people forget with something like Expert Duelist is I actually think it's not objectively better to kill an attachment the vast majority of times. The real strength behind Expert Duelist is auto-procking a panic test for the vast majority of units. I think that can't be overlooked. No dice roll involved, just being like, boom, there you go, take a panic test. Very, very strong for certain combinations of certain units. So I think people forget that that's the power because they're so used to having their commander assassinated. Yes, I'm not going to sit here and say commander assassination is an amazing thing, and I really think commander assassination is an amazing thing and should be pressed at all opportunities to include in the game. But I don't hate it. Like, it's just what it is. You just deal with it. You know your commander's going to get assassinated if you're not careful. Be careful and protect him, or don't, and have him assassinated and win other ways. Yeah, I don't know.
So the thing about Khal Drogo, right, is that he's a commander too.
Yes.
Right. At least he is a commander too, and he's going to have to commit to come and fight your commander. So if your commander's getting assassinated by Khal Drogo, I'm just like, well, why aren't you protecting your commander? Like, why aren't you putting it in a position like where if you're so desperate to keep this commander alive, it's like, well, if you overextend Khal Drogo and come and make some long bomb charge or just like generic charge into my commander, then I'm gonna countercharge you and you're gonna lose your commander as well. Like he doesn't have elusive escape. That's the card he loses from his deck and all these kind of things. You should be able to kill him. Less so in the Blood Riders these days because they are literally the tankiest thing in the game that ever got made. But like then you're investing in a commander and one of the best units in the entire game, and all you're gonna do is go and kill a commander and then run away. It's like that doesn't win you the game.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, and and that's evident through we look at the stats, and we do believe in the stats here. Strangely enough, Drogo just doesn't win, and I really get that it leaves a sour taste in people's mouth. But maybe you're losing the game through other things, not Expert Duelist. There will be games which are decided because on the last round or something they can get engaged and assassinate your commander and things like that. It's like, yeah, there will be games like that, but the vast majority of games won't be that. So yeah, I have no problem with it. I've no problem with it whatsoever. Yeah, it can be frustrating, but so can failing a panic test at a really inconvenient time. It is what it is. Move on. Yeah. To be fair, everyone is saying NPE. NPE is what everyone says. And ultimately, where we'll get to at the end of today's session, we'll talk about what people say. So, next one, Carlo. Next one. What do you think it's going to be? What do you want it to be? So randomly gone off, randomly disappeared.
Wouldn't ask me that when I have a 10-minute delay on conversations in general.
That's fair enough. I won't ask you that. Yep. The next one. Ranged units, but I mean, Knights or Crossbowmen. Ranged units in general. And the use of things like charge blocking and movement and things like this to make them less engageable.
Okay. Which thing are we specifically talking about?
We are talking specifically about...
The game can't exist without ranged units.
Yes, agreed. Specifically Night's Watch
Are we talking about charge blocking?
Night's Watch Crossbowmen at the moment.
Night's Watch Crossbowmen.
Yep. In relation to the power of ranged units.
Not on NPE.
Not an NPE.
Nice Watch Crossbowmen are not an NPE. Nothing wrong. Yeah. Bull is an NPE. Watch Captain is an NPE. That combo is a massive NPE. The 7-point Night's Watch Crossbowman unit is not a negative player experience. There's nothing wrong with that unit that needs to be changed.
Yep. Okay. So charge blocking, NPE or get good?
It's tough. I would say for me, that's the closest thing to NPE so far. I don't mind it. I don't mind when you use it. I don't mind that it happens. I'm well aware of it. I use it myself. I use it all the time. I don't have an issue with it. I think that it's a bad mechanic.
I think that's I'm going to put that in NPE because I do think that charge blocking, although I do believe it is a skill that you can learn and everybody can use it, I do believe that it gives people a nasty taste in their mouth. And certainly one of the worst feelings in the game is knowing that your opponent can pivot so that you're in the front arc, but you're in the side arc, but the front is clearly chargeable and open. Like the worst bit is knowing that they can pivot just over angle and go, yeah, now you can't charge me at all, but my entire front arc is open for a charge, and you can clearly reach it and get there, but you're not allowed to.
I don't have any negative connotations to you using it.
No.
I don't have any. I have no qualms about using it against you. I don't do it and think, oh, but like I'll do this, but I feel bad. Like, no, it's the rules of the fucking game. Get over it. Do you know what I mean? Like the rules of the game. We're playing this game. But I think that its existence is a negative mechanic in this game. Like you should have written better charge mechanics. It is badly written rules that it's a badly written rule which is stacked upon a bad problem in the past, which is that like they were basically it all exists because of the 1 millimeter charge that used to exist, and then the charge pulling out of position that used to exist. Basically, it's maybe could be argued that it's the best the charge rules have been. That's a right. It's not necessarily worse than other charge rules that have been, but throughout various changes, the charge rules have always been considered weird and non-intuitive and one of the weakest aspects to the game in general. It is one of the weakest aspects of the mechanics. I think that it's a bad mechanic. If you use it against me, like I won't take a second's thought about, oh, what's this guy doing? Why is he playing the game like that? Anything like that. I'm just like, cool, nice move.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's one of the mechanics that I hate in the game, but it doesn't stop me using it. Like, I don't enjoy the mechanic. I think I'm very much of the opinion. I don't know if I'd do it. Maybe I'd do it for worse charges as well. I haven't decided. But, like, if you can charge the front and you're in the flank, and you can clearly get a line contact to somewhere on the front of the plate, and there is space following legal charge rules for the front of the unit to be chargeable, I am of the opinion that you should be allowed to target the unit and say, okay, I'm in your flank, but I'm going to opt to take your front charge instead, which is worse for me. But like, as in like the attack bonuses and stuff, but at least it allows me to achieve what I want to achieve in this game, rather than just not having an opportunity to actually engage you with a unit.
Yeah, I think that people also. I think that like people overuse it, and that's kind of odd. Like, as in, I think people use it in places that they shouldn't, and actually they just cause themselves problems. They like
Traffic
try to be
noise.
all sneaky. They try to like, oh, I'm gonna do it, and I'm just like, all right, fair enough, cool, all right, I'm just gonna maneuver, and then you just gave me a flank, so I'll just charge you in the flank. You know, and what they're trying to do is trying to make themselves completely unchargeable. But like, I just see it as like sometimes, yes, if you do it well, it is a very, very good move, and I'm okay with that. It's a skill based positional play, but there are risks involved. Like you are often opening up flanks to things that you haven't seen. You open yourself up. Normally, it relies on people being in the exact position that they're currently in. So anything that gives up like a 1 inch shift or something like that will suddenly put you in a great position. It's very technical. It's a technical use of the rules, and I have no problems with people technically using the rules. Like the rules are what they are. We don't write them. Players just use them. Overall, it's not a good rule, but like
It is what it is. I
it's
think it
not a
creates negative play.
experience.
I think it
Yeah.
creates negative play, but not necessarily being an NPE itself. Richard's right as well, and line saying that the 1 inch retreat back, or like one and a tiny bit inch back, and then a slight pivot, and you become unchargeable, does feel fucking stupid. Like those 1 inch retreats, so then
Why?
it just feels stupid in terms of like actual gameplay. It's like, oh, we backed off a little bit, and now you can't charge us. You know what I mean? Like if it was
Okay,
actual
yeah, but like,
warfare.
yeah, if you, yes, in
Yeah,
combination with the no charge,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
No,
like you should be
retreating's
able to
fine.
retreat an inch.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like if
No, I've got no problem with retreating an inch.
you
My
know, like
problem is if you retreat
there's
an
no
inch.
other thing that you can do.
Yeah,
Like, what you're going to force everybody to retreat the maximum distance that they roll, and then that, I mean, for me, that's way worse
yes,
because now where I end up is completely not in my control.
yeah,
I'm going to end up anywhere from 4 inches away to 10 inches away. And I have no control over that until after I've already said I'm going to go do it. I'd much rather be in control and have somebody just
yeah,
shift away a little bit, which also is like, I mean, I know we try not to convolute like reality and gameplay, but like that feels very real to me. Like if
yeah,
you want to make like an actual orderly retreat, you don't just run the fuck away. You just back off slowly and like, you know, generate enough space between us that we can't hit each other anymore.
yeah,
Like you don't actually run away. What you do is you just like break the combat. So it feels actually very normal to me and feels
yeah. I think the specifically what he's referencing is the 1 inch retreat followed by the block just feels stupid. Um, it's the combination of the two rules together, which is, and
so
it's
again what you
yeah,
don't like is the
is the
yeah, so
charge. Yeah,
yeah.
the charge blocking. That's
It's
the problem.
charges that people have an issue with, not retreats.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right then. We'll move on to the next one, which is we've already mentioned his name. We've already mentioned his face. Awful Commander. And generally speaking, this is not just awful. Commanders, and it kind of links into what we talked about with Drogo, but commanders that are worth more than their commander tag would potentially warrant in others. And I know that's a question of balance, but literally having commanders that are bringing like 2 to 3 point attachment worth of content in their attachment and cards which are clearly above a power level. You know, to the point where it's obvious. I'd argue Mance almost fits into this category. Um, who else you've got? You've got we won't cover Mother of Dragons here because she's her own entity kind of thing. But stuff like Offal and other stuff like that.
Um, I don't know.
You said Offal was NPE earlier.
True. Um, I don't mind playing against Othel. I don't mind playing with Othel.
Yep.
I'm happy to do so. I have a problem with the huge gulf between the strength of offal and the strength of something else.
Yeah.
Right? But that's balance, right?
It is. It's a balance question. Yeah.
That's a question of balance. Offal is such a combination of problems, right? Like,
yes.
hardened is a problem, and he has it. His cards are a problem. The style of gameplay is uninteresting to most people, and that's a problem. Cards that last forever are a problem, and that's the Night's Watch Tactics deck in general. And he brings them all. He brings everything you don't really like playing against into one package. I think, yeah, I see you've already put it in NPE. Like, I have to agree that if there was one thing in the game that I would agree, balance wise, is an NPE, I would say it was awful. Yeah. And yet, I will preface this with GIT fucking good. I'll happily play you if you're playing awful. Like, really, like, honestly, I will play you. And I won't complain. You know, like, it's the game. Like, really, it's the game.
Yeah. I'm of the similar opinion, to be honest. I do think Offal is a negative play experience, but not because Offal himself is a negative play experience necessarily. But it's the perfect storm, right? It's what he brings and what he enables is just not fun. And I play this as a free folk player, right? I play this as a free folk player knowing that the best chance for me to win a game when he is there and the builds that are present. And it's not a balance question, really. It's a style question mixed with a balance question. The style of gameplay he brings, the best thing I can possibly do is bring a load of units that don't give up victory points and hope that you can't kill me. Because I'm not going to kill you first. And I can't reliably engage you with units that will hang around long enough to stop you from killing me. And I can't kill you, so I should just play a non-game. And I don't like playing a non-game. That is a negative play experience. And that, I mean, it's the closest that I've ever been in a game to just ramming my head against a brick wall and feeling like it was a question of, does the wall break first or does my head?
The thing
that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it, which makes me weird. But it's not pleasant, especially, and this is the big thing, not pleasant, especially if you're not super competitive and of that mindset.
The thing is people, like, you say, and I know you absolutely believe that, like, it's style and balance. Yeah. But it's not. It's balance.
It is mostly balance.
It's balance.
Yeah, it's balance.
It doesn't have anything to fucking do with style. It's balance, right?
It's balance. Yeah.
You can pick any style, and if it's unbalanced, people have a problem with it, right? Yep. Mother of Dragons. Its style is aggression and maneuverability. It's entirely 100% different to Offal's style, which is stand still and shoot. It's high maneuverability, high technical positioning, high damage output. And
yeah, keep going.
And when it's also imbalanced, suddenly it's like, oh no, I just don't like that style. It's yes. Like, so you don't like aggressive? You don't like aggressive gameplay either?
No, I mean, I've got no problem with MOD at all. By the way.
And then, well, no, yeah, but like people do, right?
Yes,
people do.
Yeah.
And then make Baratheons a bit stronger. Make Rose Knights and tanking a bit stronger. Then suddenly, like, defensive, standing still, being unmovable. People will be like, oh, I don't like that style. Oh, it's a style thing. I don't like the style of an army that just stands still. Make Lannisters have even more control and be overpowered, and suddenly people, I don't like control gameplay. I don't like control gameplay. Like,
I
no,
agree.
what you don't like is fucking imbalance. Yeah? The game isn't balanced, and that's what you don't like. You don't like the feeling of not being able to win. And I don't just mean like I'm not good enough to win. You start the game and you already know you've lost because it's not balanced.
I will say, Joey said in chat there shouldn't be a viable standstill and shoot build at all. I disagree. I actually do think there should be a standstill and shoot build in the game. I don't think it should be consistent. I think that should be a build where it's like, I'm not going to play the objectives and I'm going to try and kill you in like 4 rounds before you win the game on points. And it should be a question of, can I do it? You know, is it possible for me to do that if I want to? And your opponent goes, that's his game plan. Now I'm going to disrupt him doing that. Which also, is not the same as what it is.
I'd say that Othel isn't stand still and shoot. Like,
no, he's not.
Othel loses because people play him as stand still and shoot. Othel is actually basically nigh on unbeatable if you actually combine him with good positional gameplay and tactical objective gameplay on top of the fact that he kills the fuck out of anything he wants. If you just stand still and shoot stuff that I walk at you while I control the objectives, you will actually lose. Yes. And that is how the Lannister army beats Night's Watch.
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't. You just don't know how to play the Night's Watch side of that game matchup. You know, like, if the Night's Watch just play aggressive, move forward, take the objectives, and then say, what the fuck are you going to do about it? While also killing them. The problem they want.
I think we get you there. I think we get you. Someone says, get good. Ludicrously high win rate. It is, I mean, Offal is, I mean, we've all agreed this. Offal and the balance that Offal has is definitely an NPE style. I say style, but an NPE problem. Because it's the balance that's just so out of whack with specifically that one commander. But also, you know, definitely just because it exists doesn't mean you shouldn't play against it. It's one of the criticisms I have at the moment is that people don't play him enough or play against him enough. And as a result, we're seeing, I think people forget, and as a result, it's a problem. Actually, you need to have somebody reminding everyone that this piece exists. Otherwise, he just crawls out the rule work at some other godforsaken time. What about specifically commanders that are poorly balanced as their attachment version, as in a commander who is basically better than a 2-point attachment that you'd be willing to pay for? What do you think about that? And I know that's a balance question, Carlo, but do you think it's a bad thing that we're not seeing characters worth 2 points? Partially because of balance, but also because actually, like, a lot of commanders are better than a 1 point and probably better than most 2 points for free.
That's a bit of a weird question. I mean, commanders have such a huge intrinsic overall value. They are so much more than their attachment.
Yes.
The 6 tactics cards that they bring are so much more than whatever attachment they are. And Othel's card could be entirely blank, and I would choose him.
So that, I mean, that plays into the NPE style, right? Isn't that you're literally getting a point efficient attachment for 0 points, which is not a problem, but like this, as you say, it's something that contributes more than just that, and you're still willing to take that hit, with blank cards, which is crazy, you know. And I know that goes into a whole discussion of balance around the whole faction and things like that, which is not really where we're trying to get to today. And a lot of what we're talking about is obviously linked to balance, strangely enough. All right then, moving on. Baratheons. Are Baratheons a negative play experience, or are they just a faction that people need to get good at using? This comes off the back of defensive units. You know, are they too powerful if you buff them and make them really good? We had this brief discussion last week. If you make 5-point defensive units spammable and too good at what they do you just end up with a everyone just engages in melee and nothing happens game? Or a Baratheon's just too OP because they did win an event this weekend. Does that make Baratheons literally overpowered and awful levels of needing a nerf?
Baratheon list building is unfun.
I agree, 100%. It's shite.
Like, and that's very hard to get past. As a person who plays multiple factions, it's a struggle to build an army with Baratheons and feel good about it. And so, like, I mean, for me, the faction, the only fun in playing Baratheons is the challenge. I think that their whole play style, the fact that I do love Baratheons, like I really do. More time on my Baratheons than anything. I like Baratheon in everything. Baratheons are not fun to play as for a whole range of reasons. Yeah. The only reason I enjoy playing them is because they're the worst faction. And that it's a challenge.
And that's unfortunate, right? I mean, we could say, oh, just get good, be better with them, but it is upsetting. And this, again, it's a balance question, right? It is definitely a balance question, really, which is kind of, again, what I'll come to later on. They are not fun, and I don't mean not fun to play against. They're not fun to play, and I've been playing them. Yeah. Like, I say this as a person who has been playing them a lot. I have done, caveat here, because Carlo knows why, I have literally played every single Baratheon commander, and won with every single Baratheon commander now, over the last month, going for the badge. And I've played every kind of build, and I've played lots of different things, and I always take the same fucking units. I always take the same fucking list archetypes, and it's boring. It's actually, and I'm not even saying to make competitive lists. I'm making lists that I don't even think are that good and are just a bit more fun to play against, you know, looking for game style stuff. I still look at it going, God, this is shite. It's not even fun to build this.
I think that Greyjoys, for example, are the polar opposite. Like, people just enjoy playing Greyjoys.
Yeah, 100%.
They feel like they've just got stuff going on. Like, they're aggressive. You make plays. You feel like when something does something, it's because you've done something good. Baratheons, even when you win with Baratheons, you just look and you're like, well, I won because my opponent fucked up. And like,
yeah, the competitive level. Agreed.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like, but you know, like, but because everything that they do is a counter, right? Counter play on a attacking level is like, do something, hope your opponent walks into trap, right? Yeah. I don't get to, like, maybe you really enjoy setting up these traps. You really enjoy, you know, making your opponent fall for it. But I'm just like, man, that guy's stupid. Why did he fall for that trap? Like, you know, I feel differently about Lannisters, right? Because the trap, the counter, is in card play, right?
Yes.
And I think that's interesting. It's hidden.
Be back in a moment.
I don't have it, or maybe he don't have it, and I'll play it later.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But
it's
with Baratheons, it's like, I have fucking Sentinel. You can see that I have Sentinel. If you let me use Sentinel, then, well, like, thanks for the win.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, I mean, and just a word to a couple of people in chat here when they're talking about this as well. Michael, it's great that you've picked up the Baratheons and Renly and are having fun with it. Honestly, that's really good, especially as a new player. That is fantastic. What I will say to you, if you think you're having fun with Baratheons now, it probably means you love the game. And honestly, like, once you play Baratheons and you get the opportunity to start up like a second list or play with your mates, stuff, whatever it is, and you get to play with another faction, you'll be like, oh my god, this is even more cool. So, like, it sounds really bad when I say this, but by starting with Baratheons, who are kind of like the worst feeling to start with, and if you're enjoying that, it can only go up. So, I mean, it sounds like this is like the perfect game for you and your enjoyment, to be honest. Randomly selling the game. Datalink saying he's got a local player there who's won 2 tournaments with Baratheons, and often places well with Baratheons. And I talked to Datalink about this actually the other day on the main Discord. And it straight up probably means he's a really, really, really good player. Like, probably means he's fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, maybe other people can enjoy it too. Like, I honestly, like, this is maybe a genuine, I don't like the style. I mean, like, I do like counter style. I like defensive play. I like counter play. That's one of the reasons why I want to like Baratheons. That's why I like Lannisters. Like, I like all these things, but when I play Baratheons, I'm like, nah, this is crap.
Yeah.
And for me, the Baratheons are very, very powerful when your opponent allows them to be. And so, like, it doesn't, it doesn't win you any friends, but I'm sorry, but like, most people let Baratheons win. I've lost to Baratheons, and I know flat out that it's because I let them win. I made big mistakes, which you shouldn't do against Baratheons, and you will lose. Yes. Of course, you can win with Baratheons, but honestly, if Baratheons are winning repeatedly and reliably in your area, then people genuinely need to like learn the strategies.
Yeah.
To beat Baratheons, which is just a different gameplay style, which is combat doesn't win the game. If you're losing to Baratheons, it's because you put too much focus on combat and not enough focus on movement and objective play. Because Baratheons are terrible at movement and they're terrible at objective play.
Yeah. But it certainly is interesting to know that players do well with them. And it does mean, it's like, say, 14th on stats at the moment with, to be honest, very few games recorded overall. Probably means that he's a very good player and he knows what he's doing with Baratheons, and he forces you to make a choice, and he presents enough of those decisions in the game that people make mistakes. And that's all you can do as a Baratheon. And you know what? If people are doing that regularly and saying, look, make a choice, and you don't get them all right every game, wins. That's all you can do as a Baratheon. If there are players out there doing that consistently, actually massive kudos for them. It is hard to keep consistently doing that. So, anyway, we'll move on. We will move on to the next one, Carlo. Now, this one's going to hit home. Yeah? This one you might cry yourself to sleep at night for.
Did Baratheons not?
No, Baratheons didn't hit home. This next one. Not Red Cloaks themselves, necessarily, but what Red Cloaks really have come to personify, which is the reach out and touch you mechanic of like panic, basically, and panic modifier style stuff, which we did touch on earlier when we talked with Runic Elk's question. But I mean, Red Cloaks really do personify it with the fact that just take a -3. Oh, just take a -3. Is that a fun mechanic? Is that a thing that people want in the game? Or realistically, don't get me wrong, Red Cloaks are not actually that strong, right? Red Cloaks are not that strong. This is not really a balance question. It's more of a, does this actually feel like a good mechanic, to be honest? I don't know. What do you think?
It's not unlimited range.
No.
It is basically taking a shot. I don't see why people see it so differently to shooting. I mean, like, the panic check is going to do what? 2 wounds?
On average, yeah.
And
Actually,
it's not even going to do it that often. Like, like, call it, roughly speaking, 50% of the time. Maybe more like 60, 70. But you're talking like 1.5 wounds average. Why are people so terrified of this 1.5 wounds?
I think it's because it doubles down with. I mean, you combine it with not so much Joffrey for extra damage, but healing, which I know is a whole different matter from the High Sparrow, which I know people do struggle with, because it's like a 4 wound swing kind of at that point, which suddenly makes it very different.
Okay, but now you're talking about a combo.
Yeah, you are. You're talking about a combo. I agree.
Right.
I agree 100%.
So we're back to, there's nothing wrong with crossbowmen.
Yep.
There's a problem with the full package combo. There's nothing wrong with red cloaks. There's maybe a questionable problem with red cloaks and High Sparrow and Joffrey and
Insert other parts of whatever here.
and Hear Me Roar and like
Intim.
Fealty to the Crown, which can also be used as well as High Sparrow. And yes, that caused such a one moment impactful thing. On top of the fact that they're also very good for 6 points, right? So, like, again, it's back to this idea that, like, you're giving too much. It's not the ability you have an issue with.
No.
It's the fact that it all combines to be too much.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of NPE involved in the fact that, like, it's a ranged attack that ignores a lot of what is ranged mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So it ignores line of sight, right?
Yes. It doesn't promote a panic test on your own unit if you're engaged.
Yeah.
Which ironically is a bad thing for Lannisters, because you want to do a panic check on your poor fellows.
Yeah.
A bit of counter synergy. I would tend to agree. I'm halfway house here because I do think it's completely play aroundable. I've not got a problem with red cloaks when I play against them. I've not had an issue with red cloaks. But I really do get the kind of like very uninteractive style that they try to promote in red cloaks. And I don't like that,
their range of influence is no bigger than any given ranged unit.
No.
So why, like, people don't have a problem with the existence of ranged units?
No. I think we know where this one's going to fall, don't we?
I mean, I think it's a GIT GUD, but
I would tend to agree. I tend to agree. I just think the reason I put it on this list is I know a lot of people don't like them existing because of the feeling they get when they play against them, which again we'll cover that in a minute.
They are a good unit for applying pressure.
Yeah.
And like to creating this need for your opponent to do something. They are impactful in that way on the game.
Yeah.
But it's mostly a feeling and not a reality. They're not going to go out and wipe your units out. They're not gonna, these panic checks aren't gonna kill anything other than like raiders or conscripts because of their disorderly rule and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're not the unit you think they are, but I can see why people don't like playing against them.
It is true to say though, because of their mechanic, it does push them to a one-shot like unit, right? They're a unit that can create a panic check, which could be a couple of wounds. 7 dice on 3s is a very good attack profile for a 6-point unit, it turns out nowadays. And then another panic check that's probably going to, like, the result of that, it starts to push it to I can delete a low morale unit, which I can get when one-shotting is kind of disappearing from the game for the vast majority of people.
I mean, you can't though. Like, you're not one-shotting. You're not one-shotting anything unless it has no armor and no morale.
Yes.
In which case, you deserve to be one-shot.
I agree. I actually agree. Like if you're one-shotting Ironborn Bowmen, for example, or like Free Folk Trappers. Yeah, I mean that seems fair enough. I agree, but I think it's the feels bad moment that people can do that with, and that's probably all it is. There is one thing that Localbury does say, and this actually comes back down to what was one of the best changes in 2021, but also kind of the worst as well in some ways, is that panic checks are very non-interactive, right? A range shot, I roll dice, you roll dice, we all roll dice together. It feels like it's interactive play, and I fully get that we don't share that, but a lot of players believe that that's interaction they enjoy, whereas make a panic test doesn't feel interactive. I get that. I do. You can't take that feeling away from people, but
it's not global though. Like,
no.
And your interaction comes from control of the tactics board, the existence of the ability, whether or not you can shut off the ability. Though there are very few things that can these days, and all those kind of things. Like, there still exists some interaction. Just it is low, but its impact is very low.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a GIT GUD. I think we're happy with that one. And we'll move on to, we're into the last three. There's three more till to go. Jesus Christ. This next one you've already mentioned, Carlo. Not what I thought would come up, but apparently it is. My Face. My Face, NPE or Get Good. Carlo's briefly frozen, so we don't get to see his immediate reaction. And he's back. He's back in the room. Am I Get Good or NPE when you play against me?
I tell you something. I fucking hate listening to Mickey on TTS.
I'll take that as an NPE.
Next time, to anybody who does, I'll tell you a few things. Firstly, listen out for how Mickey basically narrates the game. Like, I fucking hate that, right? Like, he narrates what's happening to everybody that's already watching the game. That's annoying. I could go on a really long list of things that Mickey does that I hate.
It's true. Most things I do really piss Carlo off.
I'm only aware of them because I watch him play too much and I play against him too much.
It's probably true. You say it's Get Good? No. The last one then, Carlo. It's not the last one. There might be another one afterwards. I'll have to check. This next one, Carlo, you can vote on if you want, but is of course yourself. It wouldn't have you judging me if you couldn't judge yourself. Are you a negative play experience, or do you indeed, or does people against you just need to get good?
Interesting. I'll put it this way. I think anybody who wants to get good enjoys playing me. I think people who just want to play the game, I am an NPE because I just play the game and just beat them, and like, yeah, and they don't like it. People who actually play the game because they want to get better mostly really enjoy playing me, and I'll happily discuss the game with them afterwards, talk about all sorts of stuff. But there are people like who I've played more than once, stuff like that, and they just don't like playing me because they know that they're going to lose, and they're not interested in getting better. So losing has no value to them.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Yeah, I would say that you're a massive NPE to play against, mainly because of the same reasons that you said before. I've played you too much, and I think we're encapsulated in the last game we played with each other, actually, in that we knew exactly what both of us would do at every given moment, pretty much. And the game was decided by me doing something that neither of us expected, and as a result, I lost catastrophically.
Catastrophically.
Catastrophically. But we both know exactly what each other are doing most of the game, and that is actually an NPE, which sounds really weird, but it ceases to become fun because we know how the game plays out at every opportunity. Like, to the point where it's like, I'm going to do this, and I know you're going to play this card from your hand, so please play it now, because this is what this is designed for, and we play that card, and we go, yeah, there it is, and, like, it almost becomes formulaic. It's really weird. Yeah.
I still enjoy beating you, don't worry, Mickey.
I enjoy beating you, don't worry about it. Doesn't happen often, but I enjoy it. Yes, there you go. So Carlo is indeed an NPE, as am I, apparently. And I think that's it. I'll just double check, make sure we've covered everything that we can possibly cover in the entire meta. Yep, that's everything. So, there we go. That was our first...
50-50 split.
Yeah, about a 50-50 split. Our first inaugural GIT NPE, or GIT GUD. And it ends at a 50-50 split with Get Good just winning out, which, I mean, who would be surprised in this particular channel that we'd be telling people to get good? So, what was the point of all of that very long conversation and breaking up of Robot Carlo and Carlo Bot? Well, the ultimate decision here and the ultimate point of what I was trying to say to you all, it's entirely subjective, isn't it? Entirely.
Entirely.
So, do we think, linking it to perhaps more modern, slightly more recent events, do we think that banning or talking about stuff from a this is bad for the game health or this is NPE is actually useful in the discussion?
No. Banning stuff is NPE for me.
You would say that, yeah. But do you think the discussion of NPE
No, like
actually...
I really would. Like if you ban stuff, I don't want to play.
Yep.
Like whether I'm using them or not. But like you can, you know, like I could be wanting to play Baratheons. If you come along and say, "Let's watch a band," I'm like, "No, I'm not playing anymore."
Michael gets it. All of that for a life lesson. NPE. Yeah, all of that for a life lesson. No, the point is that NPE is so subjective, right? Within the game at the moment, there are things that actually, like, general consensus is that it is NPE. I don't think it's hard to convince the vast majority of people that offal is NPE. But why is that useful? That's actually the kind of question I have to you. Why are we having to convince people that stuff's unpleasant to play against? Because that shouldn't be what we're talking about. It should be talking about how we solve the problem, or how we're just going to put up with the problem until the problem goes away. I feel like this whole discussion around, oh, this is NPE, so you won't have to subject to that, I just think is just not useful. It's not productive. It doesn't get us anywhere. And we end up going in the same circles every time. Every single time. And yeah, I don't like living in a world where somebody else decides what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy. Because that is entirely subjective.
Shall I hit you up with the little maths homework that I did?
Please.
Actually looking at offal. I'll have to do it off the top of my head now. This is it's gonna get a bit janky now because I did have them up before, but I closed everything in an attempt to try and make my internet better, and I don't think it did. So I went through the entire Hall of Champions, right, and looked at every single tournament. So I got rid of anything which is ELO. Yep. Because obviously that's unfair. I also got rid of anything where anybody changed the rules.
Yep.
And then I also separated out ones where things were banned, aka awful, MOD, right? And we're left with 48 tournaments.
48. Okay.
Go on. Well, let's test you for once. What do you think in those 48 unrestricted tournaments? What do you think is Othel's play rate? How many? What percentage of players Othel?
Percentage of players play rate 48 tournaments, right?
Yeah, 48 different tournaments.
I'm gonna say his play rate at the event. So his average play rate, the number of times this is the number of times he appears in lists.
No, people playing him.
People playing him. People playing him. I am going to say that the average play rate is about 20%. Give or take, maybe it's a percent or two. Pause for dramatic effect.
No. No. 9%.
9%? That
9%.
didn't deserve the dramatic music. 9% is quite low. Lower than I thought it would be, obviously. I was in my head I was expecting something like 15 as like a bound, where I was like maybe 15 sounds more reasonable. Just because the percentage of Night's Watch entries in most events is not that high. But I'd have thought 9%.
So this is after you've removed all the tournaments where he's banned, all the tournaments where like ELO's involved, all the tournaments where it's not just like, hey, this is open play, go and win with him.
Yeah.
Only 9% of people enter him. Which again, I think is that classic thing that people think that he's a bigger problem than he actually is.
Yes.
What percentage of tournaments do you think he wins?
This has got to be higher. This has got to be 40%.
Interesting. So you think he wins 40% of all tournaments while being entered in 9% of entries?
Yes, give or take.
See, so there's two ways to look at it. He wins 25% of all tournaments.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's more reasonable.
But he wins 45% of tournaments where he's actually entered. Because there are obviously a ton of tournaments where there aren't any Othel.
Yeah, I assumed we were talking about only ones he'd entered in, sorry.
Okay, so, yeah. but his play rate is much higher than 9% in tournaments that he only entered.
Yes,
right.
Yeah,
if we discount all tournaments where nobody entered him, then his play rate's much higher than 9%. Right, but then so he enters at 9% but wins 25% of the time, which is a bad number, right? Like that means that he's 3 times as likely to win as anything else.
Well,
like by its entry.
It's scary that you're saying that, like, if you put the caveat of if Othel enters the tournament, he wins 45% of the time. That's actually scary, because that's like him only appearing 9% of the time. As much as that sounds really low, there will be players in smaller events, much smaller events where you only have like 6 to 10 people, who maybe none. Like we're talking about, like in our club, Carlo, there's actually a chance there just won't be a Night's Watch player. Not so much, not an Othel player, just not a Night's Watch. Whereas if you're talking about, I mean, actually, that's a curious statistic. Did you measure what's the appearance rate of Night's Watch in those events? Is that something you looked at?
No, not really.
Okay.
I would say really roughly off the top of my head, because I basically looked through every Night's Watch entry for what they're playing. Othel is played by about half of everybody. So I would roughly say that Night's Watch are about 20% of all entries.
Yeah.
And that Othel is played by about 10% of them.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, Nline points out as well, somewhat common. A lot local metas, people won't play them because, like, the honor idea. Whereas rather than outright bans.
There's another one which isn't really a statistic.
Yep.
Honestly, no, the data doesn't back it up.
Okay.
Like he's entered into tons of small 6, 8, 10-man tournaments. Like that's people's perception. It's not reality. Okay. Like Othel is more is as much a local problem as he is an international problem or big tournament problem.
All right.
I mean, he's won 3 out of 5. So if we categorize the biggest events as anything with more than 16 people, there's only been 5 of them, and he's won 3 of them. So that's technically a 60% win rate. But I mean, like, really, he's one result different away from a 40% win rate, or one result different away from 80% win rate. So it's not really a statistic at that point, right?
Just out of curiosity, right? Of those 5 big events, was he in contention to win the event in the final round in every case?
Yes. Definitely one of the 2 that he didn't win, and I think both of the 2 that he didn't win.
So he was probably in the final of every single major event.
Yes. Which I think
the important statistic, really.
Is it?
I think it is. I think that is because losing a game in a final implies you're playing against a very good player. If you're going to lose any game with a strong thing, it's always going to be your last one, right? Because in theory, it should be your closest or hardest matchup. So I think him appearing every time in the final. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. But his play rate's actually really high in big tournaments as well.
I can imagine that.
That's where you start to see the 20% play rate. That's where you have 30-something entrants and 8 of them are playing awful. You know, that happened a lot. Basically, the bigger the tournament, the more likely you are to play awful, and the more likely awful is to win.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I think that, interestingly, he hasn't won a tournament for ages. And
because he's, well...
Actually, when you look through the tournaments, he has been getting played.
Yes.
Like, it's not that his play rate has disappeared. He's been played once, twice in these 10-man tournaments, and he's not in the final. He's in the middle or the bottom of the table. And I think that actually, like, we're not discussing it at all. That when in the first month, he had literally a 20% if you entered the tournament, he won the tournament win rate.
Yeah.
Right? If he's played, he wins.
Yeah.
It was as simple as that. And I don't know if people are bored of him. I don't know if people are self-regulating or what. But it's interesting that the Hall of Champions looks very balanced these days in terms of the various things that are winning. I think it's an interesting discussion how self-regulated the song community is, how self-imposing it is of like bans and changes and rule changes, and I won't use this even though I can. It's quite interesting. Like,
I mean, this is something we discussed with some of the patrons in short, but to a point where myself and you have been a bit confused by this. In the 2-list format, we've been to tournaments. I did it at London, right? I took 2 lists and I ended up only playing 1 list the whole weekend because it just so happens the reason that I brought the second list never really came about. Not the intention of why I brought it and the position to use it, really. You did it in Scotland, right? You only played 1 list in Scotland for a 3-round event. Same thing. You played against the same kind of stuff every time, and it was just the best list to take for all those cases. People play one of their 2 lists semi-regularly. It's not unreasonable to only play one of your 2 lists. But someone said something very interestingly. I went to a tournament with a thing that I had no intention of ever playing. Because of, like today's topic, NPE. Specifically, Targaryens taking Mother of Dragons but never using Mother of Dragons. or someone taking John and Othel and then choosing not to use Othel when it would be objectively better for them to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, I'm like, you know what? People are great. People are good. That's fantastic. People are nice. But that also confuses me. Why are people nice?
Well, no, what confuses me is why did you take it at all?
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like, what I get confused by, and it is genuine confusion. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm genuinely confused.
Yep.
If you think something is negative, if you think something's an NPE, and you don't, and you feel bad about having it, playing it, and whatever, why don't you pick something else? Like, this is what I don't get. Like, don't play something and then feel bad for it. Like, just play something else. There's so much else to play.
Yeah.
I'm so genuinely confused by it. There's almost nothing in the game that I wouldn't play, and you know and so it's a little bit alien to me that, like, you know, you think that this is a negative play thing from your own perspective and that you feel bad for playing it is a little bit alien, but that you would pick it knowing that you're going to feel bad about it. I'm like, there's a fucking million things to play. Like, there are other good Night's Watch commanders. Go play them, you know. Go play Donal Noy. Go play Benjen Stark. Go play all sorts of stuff. Like, play John. Play anything other than Alistair. It seems.
You say that, but have you seen Benjen Stark? Just out of curiosity.
Is he really bad?
He is only just above Jon Snow, and Jon Snow's not doing well. I mean, he's not Alistair. Let's put it like that. But he's not pushing his weight where we thought. He's not terrible. Not great. Not currently, anyway.
But yeah, people would pick a thing and then feel bad about it. Like, don't pick it.
Bloodraven says it's like if you see somebody else with it, then you know the gloves are off. So you take that list. Maybe.
All right. Honestly, genuinely, I don't want to win with Baratheons because you felt bad on me because I played Baratheons and then you played a shit list.
Yeah.
I can beat you with Baratheons. Do you know what I mean? Like,
this is interesting.
Why? Because I think you're crap. No, but do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It seems to me that everybody's afraid of the competition, like afraid of the competitive side.
Yeah.
Like, that competition is just unfun. Like, to me, what's unfun is if you don't play your best.
Yeah.
Like, if you bring
your C game
B tier shit, then that's not fun for me. Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't take pleasure in winning. I take pleasure in playing well. And you also playing well is what makes me able to play well and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. I'd be very interested you put those awful stats once you've got them all collated, or if you have got them all collated. You could get those awful stats for people to ponder over for longer as well. That'd be something interesting for us to put out there for people.
I mean, it's a crap little Google Doc.
And since when have we produced... Carlo, since when have we produced anything of higher quality than a crap little Google Doc? Come on.
There's a fucking website. The point is there's a website. Go count them yourself.
Yeah, you can go count them yourself. You can make your own crappy little Google Doc with hookers and, I don't know,
blackjack
blackjack.
And hookers and everything. God.
Anyway, are we going to talk about tournaments? Should we talk about
Go on then.
tournaments? We finally get there.
Yeah.
We have got some stuff that's going on. We've got some stuff that's finishing off. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. So I have got some stuff, first of all, for this event here, I believe, which was from, let's have a look, all the events that happened this week. It started off with this unpronounceable thing from Helsinki, Finland, which I believe had players. Yes, won by Drogo.
Is it Blood Riders Drogo?
River, Rama, Drogo's Blood Riders, and
Blood Riders Drogo.
Drogo's Blood Riders. Is they the same list twice? Huh. No, it's not. They are actually.
No. 3 NCU, 2 NC.
Yep. But a double Drogo win. Kudos. 8-man tournament. Yeah. Kudos. 3 rounds. God, the Finnish really do know how to run. Timu, I bet you any money Timu ran that tournament. Timu knows how to run an event because he does 3 rounds with 8 players, which is perfect. And there was someone on the waiting list. Does it the right way. Yeah, great. I don't really have anything to say about that. Just good. Thumbs up.
Yeah, here's the thing that I was sort of talking about when there's the ELO event that is currently making the rounds that Brett and Van are running, right?
Yeah.
There was some discussion about what was going to be running and stuff like that. I'd be genuinely interested to know whether or not Drogo Blood Riders stands up to Awful Gunline. Like, I honestly, it's a big question in my mind. I think that Drogo Blood Riders are overrated. They're not as good as you think they are. I think the one thing that they are genuinely good against is Awful Crossbows. Because it's about the only thing in the game that can just stand in front of them and charge them in the face and be like, fucking cool.
Yeah,
you know, like,
didn't
stand and shoot.
That.
You stand and shoot, and he's like, I don't care. And then he just heals off of Fueled by Slaughter and can't be weakened. And you know what I mean? Like, and I think that it's a super interesting matchup, and I would really like to see it go the distance.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I think it's a shame that that's not being allowed, even in an ELO event, where people probably won't want that stuff. I'm going to mention that about ELO actually as well. Yeah,
it's almost never going to come up in ELO because it's not going to happen in large enough numbers that you're going to see the matchup played out by like top players. It's only going to happen in a open format event, but people aren't interested enough to run big open format events.
I was going to say something about this, Carlo, actually, which an unintended consequence of ELO, which
how do you know it's unintended?
Well, I know it's unintended because I know how you use it, and I know that actually it's not the best strategy. But what we see is a gravitation of everyone towards bottom-rated stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an unintentional impact because actually, like we discussed last week, the best way of doing it is probably taking a not good commander and a decent commander, or like average, if you will, and running that combination, giving you the width and span to go across everything. But really, I think what people miss out on ELO. It gives you a chance to run what you want to run in the event with appropriate, like, compensation for running it, basically.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the real reality is that you should be playing the thing that you think you're better than everybody else with.
Yeah. And I think so many people go, oh, I want to just pick Andrew Eston because he's the worst commander. And I'm like, no, because actually, like, yes.
Now are you actually good with Andrew Estamont?
Yeah, now when you win or lose, you'll score more points, sure, but like you're not actually going to win that many games, so why does it matter? Like,
yeah, I think the thing that people miss system, right? is that like they should be playing with the commander that they think that the lowest commander that they realistically think they can win with. And I don't mean a game, I mean the tournament. Do you think you can win 4 or 5 games in a row with that commander? If the answer's no, then pick something better.
Yeah, it's a gambit, you know. If I was playing in a tournament and somebody picked Mother of Dragons, for example. Now, I know Mother of Dragons is up there, but if someone picked Mother of Dragons, but I know, and this is not to say it's a bad thing, by the way, but I know that they're not a great player. You know, their stats will say that they're, I don't know, 1500 rating, they're average player, and they're playing Mother of Dragons against me. I am not going to sit there and say, oh my god, I can't believe you brought a Mother of Dragons to an ELO event. I'll be like, cool, you brought something to an ELO event that you think you can win with, you're running it against me, and if the data is anything to go by, I should still, the vast majority of time, be beating you. So it's not a question of are you any good, it's a question of do I actually deserve to be as good as I think I am? And that is what, you know, good players looking at it should be saying, yeah, I'll run Andrew and I'll beat people. I'll do an Ariakas and just start throwing out L's to other players and be like, lol, look at me. Because I can do that because I'm good enough to do that. Whereas if you're not getting those wins, and if you want to just, you know, if you want to run Greyjoys and run Asher and Victarion in Greyjoy, fucking do it. Like, play that, because don't just go, oh, but it's not the lowest rated stuff. Who gives a shit? Like, yeah, it just got to me because so many people see it as the reverse of a normal, which is not a reverse of normal at all. They all just gravitate towards the bottom rather than what they actually want to play.
Yeah, like, it's not perfect, but it is way, 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 way closer to play anything you want and you'll be compensated for it.
Yep.
And particularly if you think something is lower rated than it should be, then play it.
Yeah. Yeah. Play stuff that's low rated. Because you think it's related.
No, not low rated.
Yes.
Underrated. They're two very different things.
Yes.
Some things are just shit and they are low rated.
Yeah.
Other things are lower than they should be in your mind, in your opinion. So play those.
Curious question.
Because you'll be more compensated than you think that you should be.
Curious question, Carlo. I've got my opinions, you've got yours, but I want to hear yours. Of everything in the meta at the moment, is there anything that points out to you as something that you believe is underrated?
Alistair in Night's Watch.
Alistair in Night's Watch? Fair.
Like, I mean, where is he? Have we found him?
No, he's in negatives. He's actually in negatives.
He, like,
negative
no way is that the bottom half of the game. You know what? I might fucking play him next time I play. I need to know. I believe him to be underrated, but I've never actually played him. So either I'm right, or
the vast majority of stats is right.
There's something I don't know about him. Or there's something I don't know about him, and I'll learn.
Do you know what I'm glad about? I think we're finally starting to see it. And can we just take a moment to respect this? We are finally fucking seeing Vargo and Dario, neutral commanders, plummet. Fucking finally. Because I think we all agree neutrals are not good as a conglomeration of units because they're not a faction. They're not good. And Vargo and Dario are now nearly near the bottom. Which, not gonna lie, I think is the worthy place for them to be. Non-commanders in a non-faction. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I actually finally think they're nearly there. They're probably overrated. Who do I think? Because I should do one myself. Roderick. I actually don't think Roderick is as bad as he should be. Roderick at minus 27, I think he's better than that. Personally. I think there's a reason that Starks held third position for so long on the site that they did. And I do think Starks are a lot better than people give credit for. But I do agree Stark list building is borderline horrible. But I do think they're better. That was the one that I point to and say should be better.
Are you going to go get yourself a tournament win then, Mickey?
Oh, probably not. Got bans. I'm not actually that interested in entering. So, right. Moving on. We talked about balance. We talked about the various different things there. Back to tournaments. We had a tournament in Leipzig, Deutschland, Germany, and Felix won in the local area with a Lannister build. Both Lannister players up the top there. Both, I mean, Lannisters in this area are known to do well. Psychopath is a Lannister player. Felix is a Lannister player. Yes, Lannisters have traditionally always done well in this area of Germany, I'm led to believe. So it's probably not that interesting that they won it, but it is interesting to see that Night's Watch entered with no awful sad face.
I find it interesting that Psychopath abandoned Free Folk, and now is considered a Lannister player. Like I do think it's quite interesting because
he always played both.
I don't think that Free Folk are weaker than they used to be in any significant way. I don't like. I don't think the Lannisters are stronger than they used to be. I actually think that both are almost exactly where they used to be. Lannisters probably used to be better when using Kickstarters. Now they're like, you know, now they're significantly worse when Mountain the Rides is played.
I think they're both middle of the pack. I think they're both very much middle of the pack factions that have good and bad matchups into each other, and the rest of the field, honest. But yeah, no, it's interesting. He abandoned Free Folk because of the playtesting debacle that he had with them, the various things that he didn't enjoy with them. He also runs a Lannister build, which is particularly horrible to play into, because he just walks at you in a big steel wall and goes, "Yeah, can attack any of this," which is unpleasant. Not gonna lie, but it's not unbeatable. It's just nice. So, cool. Obviously, congratulations to Felix there. We had Board in Brum and Carlo. This is the one that we had our eyes on over the weekend because it's where all the UK players that were going to were here, and it was won by a Baratheon player.
A Baratheon player nobody's ever heard of.
Yes.
Despite the fact that there was a lot of, you know, LGT players, people that we know, Steadfast players, Chelmsford Bunker, you know, like...
So get this, not only is it a Baratheon player no one's ever heard of, Baratheon player with 7 games under his belt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm aware that he's basically a beginner. Yep. Really interesting result. I would say, I was looking at it, I would say it's the first ever Baratheon winner that doesn't have an asterisk above it. Leap Teddy has a Baratheon win under ELO. Was it Frerin who won? Was it Frerin? I think it was Frerin who won the Tabletop Warden event. But
yep.
Strictly speaking, like this effectively had bans. Like it doesn't actually list any bans, but 2 factions were self-imposed banned.
Yep.
So that's not an open
not fully
tournament.
Yeah.
Anymore. So really do think that it has no asterisks over it. That's a really good win for Baratheons.
Yep. Yeah, and you know what? It probably means that on the day that he was probably, you know, and we talk about this on the day performance. On the day, he was probably the best player at the event. Simple as that. In that, some people say, "Oh, he didn't play into this. He didn't play into that." Sure enough, his opponents round 1 picked Alistair Thorne, fair enough. Round 2 played against a Free Folk player, beat him in Here We Stand. Dan didn't play awful into him. He played John, and you know what? Dan may have made a mistake, but Graham capitalized on it and won the game. Like we talked about this earlier. You know, he did exactly what he needed to do to win the tournament, which was...
I mean, and then it was a Baratheon mirror match in the final.
Yeah, it was a Baratheon mirror, although only one of them was undefeated.
Yeah, but you know, like the top table.
Yeah.
The table 1, round 4, Baratheon.
Yeah. It's mental, absolutely mental.
Yeah. A number of steadfast guys recovered from first round losses to do well. Chris Eustace, Tom Tyler coming second and third after both losing their first game. Tom's done pretty well there. Dean, LGT second place. Yep. Dean Rothwell was initially doing well, but he actually took a couple of losses in the end. He got put out by Night's Watch. He was doing pretty well with Starks for a while.
He got put out by awful Night's Watch in round 2, and then a Baratheon in round 3. Fire and Blood.
Yeah.
I will say something about this tournament.
By Club Nick.
I will say something about this tournament, right? Like Game of Thrones round 1, no problems with it.
Here we stand in Fire and Blood.
Why are people running Here We Stand? I mean, Fire and Blood, although I don't enjoy it, I can kind of understand why people run it. I genuinely don't understand why people are running Here We Stand as a tournament game mode. It's fucking TO nightmare. Horrible.
True, but they made it through.
They did. I wonder how long it took them. Do you think they all... Here's a question. Do you think most...
They played 4 rounds in a day.
Do you think most of these went to time?
I mean, what's that? 8-3. Put 27 points destroyed.
Yes, that could be. Well, but it won't be a wipeout because they come back.
No, it is wipeout. Yeah,
no,
it says wiped out.
Oh, it is wipeout. He must have destroyed all of the units in one round.
Yes, all the remaining units.
Yes.
Yeah, that is sketch. How?
I mean, it is awful. It's possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one anyway. And also, but I mean, you know, let's just take a minute and say congratulations again to Graham because, you know, he's got it. He still won it. Still probably a pretty good player. Still capitalized on the mistakes that his opponents were making, be it in list choices or gameplay or whatever. So massive kudos to Graham.
He did what I was intending to do, which was go there with Baratheons and win.
Yeah. You change your name to Graham. No.
not this weekend.
No. We saw Fabricators Forge event run, and this is only a 4-player event, and it was won by a Greyjoy player, Datalink, who was here in the chat earlier. So congrats to Datalink running his Euron lists, which are different, I believe. It's only a 4-player event, only a very small event, but nonetheless nice to see a unified winner come out of the back of that. So that's great. I believe they played a round robin, which is why they played 3 games. So they all played each other. So
yeah,
an actual good event. I love round robins like that. Small round robins are nice events if you get the opportunity to play them. Next up, we have this is the Russian event that went ahead. Which one is this? Is this the one in? Yes, that place there. A Clash of Kings. And this was won by Daniel Davishenka, otherwise known as Davinia, who also ran Baratheons weekend.
Somebody nerfed Baratheons.
As far as I'm aware, there are no bans. Oh no, they do have bans.
Awful banned. Mother Dragons banned. Maximum 2 conscripts.
Yep.
Build a crossbowman.
Maximum 1
watch captain.
1 unsullied. 2 tactics cards attached. Relentless only works with melee. Sadness.
Yeah.
Oh well, enough. But it's still, you know, it's still even with all those restrictions, it's still worth it. Saying that he came away with a win. So, you know, again, congratulations there to Daniel. Data for Fabricators Forge, we basically had a bunch of bad timing things come together, and most local players couldn't make it. We only had 4. You played a round robin, which made a fun day of gaming despite only 4 players. Good stuff. That's what we like to hear. I like round robins data. So
was the Fabricators Forge a 42 point, 42? The mode we should never speak of again.
I don't believe so. I believe they were 50 point lists. I believe they were 40 point lists for this particular event. Let's have a look.
Okay.
Yeah, 40 point lists. Standard 42. 40. Okie dokie. Next up, we had the one in
Italy.
Danny Scara, where's P? I feel like I should know what that is. Anyway, this was won by our very own Danny Jasper, who's very commonly seen in these parts, and he may randomly appear in the chat. But this is a decent sized event.
He retook second in the world with this win.
I think he maybe, yeah, he's certainly up there.
Long time top 8 player.
Yeah.
Always doing very well in his local events.
Yes, and he likes as well to talk to me a lot, and talks to you a lot, doesn't he? As well, Carlo?
Does he?
Yeah, we talk a fair amount, and basically after every event we have a little chat. So it wouldn't be an Italian tournament if it wasn't for some pictures afterwards, would it? Yeah. So this week I have to you the painting competition entries that went in.
Wow.
Carlo, obviously you can't really tell and give anything an accurate score from this picture. So I won't ask you to give an accurate score from this picture. But are you looking excited for what's going to come up? Connection issue, of course. What do you think of this one, Carlo?
Sorry. It's actually... I tell you what's funny about this connection, right? So it's actually really funny. I can still see you and hear everything that you do, but you just can't see or hear. Like, I'm just frozen on your screen. So I'm just sitting there watching you trying to get an answer out of me while I just fucking sit there with a frozen face. And actually, it's quite funny at times. That's some really solid zero work there.
That's for the Tully Cavalier, yeah, and the
Tully Cav and the freehand on the shield there as well. Yeah, that's some lovely freehand.
Next up, we have the dragon, which I have to admit, I mean the skeleton for me could have done a little bit more work to make the skeleton look a bit better. You know, integrate it into the ground. It looks like he's just kind of placed it on the ground a little bit like afterwards. But the dragon itself is spot on, and including the work on the eyes, he's actually got like the yellow and the black line for the eye. The dragon itself is amazing. Really like that.
Yeah, looks nice. It's not my favorite dragon sculpt, and he's done well on it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd happily see that on the table and think, yeah, pretty damn good. Next up, we have your favorite model in the game, and when I say that, I mean your favorite man in the game. The Mountain That Rides. This is the bit where he laughs because his answer's not coming through of how amazing it looks. I will point to people's attention with this model to the underside of the model down here. Now, down here, and the nice work he has on the coat down there, which is very hard to see in the main.
That's really subtle. That's really nice.
Yeah, it is, isn't
Great zeros. Yeah.
Solid zero.
Did he need to be even higher up? Did he need to be on a really, really big rock?
Yes, because he's a hero. Heroes stand on rocks. Next up, we have Carlo's actual favourite model in the game. Carlo. It's convenient that the screen is paused on him smiling here, because this suits this model to a T. He will no doubt return to the screen laughing in a second. Yes, Senor Builder. Senor Builder. Absolute legend. Lovely and simple.
Is the beard a conversion?
No, he has a beard.
Does it normally look like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Like it doesn't...
He might have made it a bit bushier. Great bushy beard.
Yeah. Big bushy beard.
Yeah.
I think I need to check that model. Looks nice.
Cool. Weeper in blue, light blue tinge. This Weeper.
I'm not into colourful free folk.
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair. You see enough free folk anyway that are boring and bland, and you just like killing them. So. And then we have the penultimate one here, Maester Aemon. With his books. I like the books.
Nice touch with the scrolls on the base. Yeah.
Nice model. And of course, we wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for the eventual tournament winner. which wasn't the tournament winner. I lie. The Hedge Knight up close. I will say that this Hedge Knight, I mean, can we just respect the cleanliness of those lines? That is...
Yeah, it's really nice freehand work.
Yeah. If you were to pick a winner of all of them, what do you think won the event? Which one won the painting?
Hard. I think that... I think that this is the best model. Yeah, I think this is the best. That's what I would pick.
Myself too. I think I really like that. The eventual winner did go to. Admittedly, I do think this one deserves it as well. Was indeed the Tully Cavalier.
Yeah. See, I was umming and ahhing over the Tully Cavalier. The Tully Cavalier shows tons of skill.
Yeah.
Like there's loads of bits of it that are very skillful. I
mean, the
actually think that just the way it goes on the model and I think that the Hedge Knight is actually just like a carrier for amazing paint jobs because there is so much room to do really cool stuff with. Not that the Tully Cavalier doesn't have tons of skill on it and tons of whatever. I think that whoever painted the Tully Cavalier could also do an amazing Hedge Knight, and I'd love to see what they did with an amazing Hedge Knight.
Yeah, completely agree. So yeah, congratulations there to the Tully Cavalier painter. Honestly, really well done. I have one final question as well, which something that he wanted to share with us as well. They had this guy here playing the event, which was playing Night's Watch by the looks of it. 15-year-old turned up to the event and played in the event, and saying getting youngsters in and things like that and getting them in playing, which I think is brilliant. So obviously huge congrats there, and it's his 4th tournament this season as a 15-year-old. What a legend! Getting into the game at a young age and clearly enjoying it. That's fantastic. That was something that Jasper wanted to point out as well. So that was the Italian event, won by Jasper again. Kudos to him and his Targaryens. We then had one of the Polish events, and this was won by Podwis and his Free Folk. It's a name we've heard around here, these parts, quite a lot. He wins a lot of the local events there, and again, a very good player. Again, top 8 on stats. So congratulations to Podwis there. This was a tournament with Kickstarter units banned, which is a bit sad.
Must use no coin beyond the wall.
Free Folks are subject to the no coin beyond the wall rule, which the fact they have to say it is hilarious. Then we had another Polish event, and this one I believe was won by Tessiu, a Stark player, who we don't see many Stark players winning events. So yeah, wow. Congratulations to him there. A 9-player event, where with some mix of factions there. It looks like a decent mix. No Baratheon, but I think everyone else has been represented. So yeah, happy days.
No neutral.
No neutrals. It's fine, they're not a faction.
Not a faction.
See this bit? That's why they can't appear there. So yeah, congratulations there to Teku with his Starks. We then had Dragon 2, which was won by Sławek, which is the one that our friend Peter was at this weekend as well. And yeah, Double Mance Raider. I pretty much know his list here. Yes, there's a list I've seen pretty much the same before. Yeah.
Congratulations to Sławek. That's pretty. I think that's quite a big result. I mean, obviously, people may or may not know that Sławek won the LGT.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. He won the LGT with Night's Watch. Obviously, this isn't such a huge event, but I think that I'm really genuinely impressed by anybody wins multiple tournaments with multiple factions. It just shows that you're just a good player.
Yep. To completely agree as well. So yeah, And there are some players. I mean, Bloodraven come away with 1 loss. Peter with 1 loss. Hajmon with 1 loss. Is another name. Grishulk in a lot of their
There's
stuff
some
with
good
1
players
loss.
there.
Yeah, definitely. So congratulations there. We are nearly through just the past ones. Jesus, I think we are through the past ones. Hooray! Should we go on to the current ones, or should we just quickly wrap things up? We'll go on to the current ones. Sod it.
There's a couple. There's the French event, which I know, which actually very close to the en route to the Citadel.
Yep.
I think that there's only couple of players. So I think there's a Free Folk mirror match. Is the other semi-final,
and the winner is likely to take first. Actually,
Lannister versus Free Folk final.
Whoever the
because
Free Folk
you think
winner
that
is.
the winner will beat Lannisters?
No, as in like.
There's a 5th round.
Right, okay. But what I mean is to say whoever wins this will take first because of secondaries.
Okay.
So they'll jump into first place, but it will be a
point is
Free Folk Lannister final.
It will be a Lannister Free final, and interesting to see.
It's a weird one because I don't believe we see any bans coming out or any changes to the inverted commas. Free Folk, the France have this really weird thing where we just don't see the same breakdown in faction strengths, at all.
No.
In what people pick and what's strong, and I don't know if that's just that they're either way ahead or way behind or just massively different. I can't believe they're massively different. I don't know why they'd be experiencing the game differently than everyone else, but it is interesting. But again, we see very few Targaryen entries. We see 1 at the top there, 2 later on, and then basically none. Lots of Free Folk, which is very weird. You don't see Free Folk a lot. And 1 or 2 Night's Watch players, and only 1 of them running off, and he's in the bottom.
The one thing that is different about the French is that their physical events are nearly all have a full painting requirement, right? That is the only thing that is actually different. And whether or not that filters through and impacts the game in any way is interesting. They are the only country that I'm aware of that puts that requirement on their players.
Weird one. We'll never understand. Or I'll never understand. But that's still running. We'll have a look at that properly. The campaign, the Tale of Smoke and Cinder, is wrapping up next week. It's had a couple of issues where timing things have gone on, so it's taking a bit longer than was originally planned. But that should be going on till next week. A lot of the other events are continuing for the foreseeable future. So we will see how they all wrap up. I think the Small Home Big Battle event. So this one is actually mostly finished. But I do believe they're waiting on the last round to come in. I think they played it over 2 days, 3 rounds. We will see. Say 2 days. They kind of finished late at night. I don't know if they said they didn't put the last results in and forgot to close it, or if they actually didn't have games unplayed. So we'll see. With that one, we've got some events coming up. So this weekend, Carlo, we have got ourselves looking forward to another event in Poland. I mean, do we even have to say it at this point? It's only a small event, 8 players, but nonetheless a small Polish event. We've seen plenty of them before. Winter is coming to Panama. Panama event running on the site.
I saw this on the map.
Yep.
And I was Council, like, holy shit.
Not War Council, War Room. The guy behind War Room probably running this. So obviously, Winston. He's only got 1 player signed up. I know he has more players signed up to the actual event. I know the event is going ahead. I know he's really keen. So massive kudos there to War Room and the guys over there. Spot on. There's an event in France in Bornel. There's also the TTS event, which is kicking off as well, and everything else after that is after that. So more stuff to look forward to over the coming weeks. So if you're in Poland, if you're in Panama, or if you're in France, check out the events there. And if you're interested in doing an ELO event, TTS event, with bans on Drogo, Mother of Dragons, Othel, and Jon, check out the TTS showdown there. And I think that's it, Carlo.
Technical issues aside, nearly 3 hours later,
yeah, it wouldn't be a good episode of Tourney Ground without technical issues and without us taking nearly 3 hours. Tell me I'm wrong.
I think Robot Carlo can finally say bye-bye. I think we really should have said bye-bye an hour ago, Mickey, to Robot Carlo.
We really should have done. We should have said bye-bye an hour ago to a lot of things. Right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that one, guys. We went on a mad one. We went on a mad ting. We've discussed everything we can possibly like to discuss. So next week it means we have a week off. No, we don't. Of course we don't. We never have a week off. We're never away. You will never be done with us until you quit this channel. Or like and subscribe. And if we have enough likes and subscribes, we will give you a week without us. Right, guys. Take it easy.
Put enough likes and subscribes in. Mickey, yes, I am calling him out as per usual, putting the pressure on him. I made a tactics video for you guys weeks ago.
2 weeks
ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, multiple weeks ago. Mickey hasn't edited it. So
that's true.
Tell Mickey where the fuck's the video.
Yeah, do that. And while you do that, guys, I'll just remind you, because some people weren't aware and someone said we should actually promote this at some point. We have a Patreon. Check it out at patreon.com/ASOIFstats. No dashes or anything in it. Anyway, you pay enough money to Carlo, he eventually shuts up, and then he'll stop producing stuff for the website, and then he'll produce less content, and literally everybody wins. Anyway, maybe he'll buy better internet. Maybe that'd be something you can do.
Yeah, that would be magic.
For just £5 a month, you can buy Carlo better internet. Right, guys, have a great week. Enjoy your tournaments if you're attending any. Goodbye from me. Goodbye from Robot Carlo. And we will see you next week. Enjoy, guys. Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?